The ongoing debate between Protestantism, Catholicism, and Eastern Orthodoxy has always, or almost always, been framed as, well, just that. Protestantism versus Romanism, or Protestantism versus Easternism. And as I've shown in many discussions, especially my two ecclesialism streams, this is a very unfair framing, as it compares an historical category, which is an umbrella for multiple traditions, that being Protestantism, with a specific tradition and ecclesial communion, that is Romanism or the Eastern churches. There's the additional problem of the definition of Protestantism as it's changed over history, initially just referring to the protesting German bishops against the 1529 Diet of Speyer. Eventually this evolved to be magisterial Protestantism, so to include the Anglican tradition, Lutherans, and the Continental Reformed. And then it's been further expanded to include the modern phenomena of evangelicalism, and sometimes in more polemical senses, it's expanded to include even other sects like Jehovah's Witnesses, which just gets ridiculous even for many other well-minded Romanist and Eastern apologists. Because of this, I've actually had a problem with the Protestant identifier for a good long while. Again, remember my ecclesialism videos, you can simply turn the same kind of concept around on Romanists and Easterners, and making an equivalent concept for them would put them all into one group and thus flip back on them their own charges of disunity that they put against Prots. Now, rhetorically, this is effective because once you actually make it one concept versus an equivalent concept rather than a different concept versus a completely different concept, it actually becomes rhetorically effective because, again, you can throw back their own charges of disunity back on them because these churches within the ecclesialist camp do not agree with each other and, in fact, anathematize each other officially. Romanists, Easterners, Orientals, you name it. But while it is rhetorically effective, it is just that, rhetorical. We need to start enforcing the actual reality itself in these discussions. Now, again, for a while, I've committed to dropping the whole identifier of I'm a Protestant and all that. And for the most part, I have. I always introduce myself as an Anglican, not as, oh, I'm a Protestant in the Anglican tradition. I never do that. But in terms of actual practice in how I engage with my discussions and arguments with Romanists and Easterners, a lot of the time I tend to assume the wider Protestant, mere Protestantism label, at least with the better definition of magisterial Protestantism, because I think that is the best definition out there because of their better shared foundations. But nonetheless, there's still an inconsistency. But more recently, it's actually finally clicked for me to really make that commitment in a true sense when I watched a very good recent video by a certain Marcus Williams, who's a Lutheran. He was basically making the same argument as I have. Lutherans should defend Lutheranism, Anglicans Anglicanism, Reformed the Reformed tradition, and so on and so forth. We should stick to our confessions and defend them as the truest expression of the Christian faith, not a mere Protestantism, nor even a mere classical Protestantism, as useful as it is to refer to such at times. Still, nonetheless, we'll all consider each other brothers of Christ, and that's a key thing nonetheless. Even if we think our own tradition is the best expression of the Christian faith, that doesn't mean, therefore, someone who doesn't sign up to it is a false believer, because best doesn't mean only. Now, this consistent label of Protestant this, Protestant that, oh, you Protestants, you have 12 gorillion different differences and everything. That's how they get away with countless fallacious arguments from disunity, by applying this historical category as if it was an ecclesiological one, as if prots of different denominations have all claimed to be of one church institution and one tradition, which we do not, at least the ones who are actually reflecting on this issue. Unfortunately, even many Protestants, people under the Protestant umbrella, accept this false premise, and yet it is just that, it's false. And so going forward, and this is the main point of this video, nothing truly profound and epic and epically scholarly and all that stuff. It's more so a commitment that I make, the reason why I'm making this video. It's a commitment. Going forward, I am not going to be defending Protestantism, except for when I am consciously working together with Lutherans, Reformed, and others. And even then, it will very carefully be framed as what specific things we share that we will defend with one another. Just as I might join up with a Romanist or an Easterner in things we share in order to fight another issue, whether it's like a social justice thing, for example. And so when someone confronts me as a Protestant in a dialogue and starts attacking Protestantism, I will correct them. I am not a Protestant. I am not a member of the Protestant church, because there is no such thing. I am not a Baptist. I am not a Presbyterian. I am not a Lutheran. And so I will not accept the burden of their defense as if it is inherently mine. I am an Anglican, and I will promote and defend the Anglican tradition as the truest expression of the Christian faith. And I likewise encourage everyone else who falls under the umbrella of Protestantism. So again, Baptists, Presbyterians, Lutherans, any other groups who I don't mention. Learn your confessions, or learn the confessions, discern what is the most faithful, and defend it as such. Of course, I'll tell everyone out there, become Anglican, because I do believe it's the truest one. But just in general, for Protestants writ large, learn your confessions, discern what's the most faithful, and defend it as such. Just as mere Christianity is an illusion which ignores key areas of dispute, so too is mere Protestantism, and mere Protestantism adds the further problem of unnecessary disunity arguments which are based on a false reality. Counteracting this false framing is the only way for us to achieve greater unity in the truest sense and combat the falsehoods of Rome and the East.